In this video, we will discuss about the chain of responsibility design pattern. It is a behavioral design pattern. So, the first question is when to use it. Let's say in your application, you are processing a request, and that request has to go through several stages. That is the following a particular sequence. For example, there is an online support system. Let's say you have a request, and now the support system is having a three levels of support. It provides some basic support. Let's consider it level 1 support. Then we do have a technical support and the escalation support as well. Now, whenever this request comes in, this request first comes to this basic support. If the basic support is able to handle this request, then it's fine, it's resolved. In case if it is not able to handle this request, then this request will be passed to technical support. And similarly, if technical support is not able to handle this request, the request is passed to escalation support. So we can say that there are these three different handlers, and we have a request which keep on passing if it is not solved by the current handler. Now this is what is simulated by the chain of responsibility pattern. What it does, it allows an object to pass a request along a chain of handlers. So we do have different handlers in the chain of responsibility design pattern, and then handlers are objects that can process the request or pass it onto the next handler in the chain, as we have discussed. Let's look at some more examples where we can use this design pattern. For example, you have to do the multi-level authentication. Let's say you have a 3 or 4 level of authentication where you are authenticating a user, and let's say the level 3 is to identify the admin user. There we can use it. We can use it in the logging application. Logging application, let's say you, and this example we will look at the code also, the practical implementation of this in this video itself. So logging application may you have different levels of logging. Then you may want to use a chain of responsibility here, that okay, if it is an info logger, I would want to use the info handler. If it is a debug logger, I would want to use the debug handler. So you can observe that there is a chain forming over here. Or we can use it the ATM also. For example, you are withdrawing some cash from ATM, let's say 5,000 rupees. Then yeah, the ATM machine, it will first check, okay, how many multiples of 500 rupees required for this. And if the request is not completed by this, then it can pass the request to the small denomination of nodes. So in this way, we can use it at the ATM also. So wherever the request is being processed in a sequence, and there are different processors which have to be handled by the different handlers, there we can use the chain of responsibility pattern. Now we can say, so here we were forming a chain of 3 level, and now this chain can be, so the starting point over here was a basic support, but let's say there is some client who dedicatedly need a technical support. Then what we can do, we can start the basically we can initiate the request directly to the technical support also, so that dynamically controlling the entry point of the client, basically from where the client is, at what point in the chain the client is initiating the request, and also how to configure the chain, that can be dynamically controlled in this design pattern. So let's have a look at the logging application. So before jumping into the code, let's have a look at the very basic diagram that we will be, a class diagram that we will be referencing in our code. So let's consider there are 3 levels of log that our application will support. It's info, debug, and error. So we will be having one base handler, a log processor. It will be an abstract class, and this abstract class will have 3 childs: info, debug, error. So what we have done, we will be forming 3 concrete handlers which will be handling the logger request separately. So what we are doing, we are decoupling the handlers. So our code logic of info is different, our code logic in the debug is different, and the change in one is not impacting the change in others, hence supporting the maintainability of code also. So let's jump into the code now. Now let's look at the implementation of a logger application using the chain of responsibility design pattern. So here we have this abstract class, logger abstract class. Here we have declared a variable next logger. It will be used to track the next handler. So to which next handler we have to move past the request in case the current handler is not able to solve it. Then we do have a log message function over here. This use case we'll understand. Let's first go to the concrete handler. So let's first go to the info logger. So we do have three concrete handlers for this, as we are supporting three level of loggers in this application. So here we are checking if the label is info, then we are going to process the request, else we will be passing it to the next logger. So we can remove this check from here because it's already there, we are checking. So else we will be passing the request from the info to the debug handler. So now again the order depends how do we construct the chain. So from info we are again passing it. So we are using this function, we are checking the next handler is available. If it is not null, then we are going to process the request through that handler. Let's see how are we constructing the chain. So we do have a logger manager. So we have declared the three concrete handlers. Then we do have set the next basically next handler available. So for info the next handler would be the debug, then for debug the next handler would be the error logger. So error is the final level that we are handling in this application as of now. So a chain is of like info, debug, and then error. So this is a chain construction. Let's go to the main file and try to execute some use cases. So let's first try to run the let's try to print the info first. So we got that info, this is an information. So that is basically the very first level of our chain, as we have declared over here also. My starting point is the info. So it came here and it print the logger. Now let's check some for other level. Let's check for the debug. So for debug, since the info logger, it is not able to handle this request, it is passing this request from the info handler to the debug handler. And then the debug handler, since there is a debug label, it is printing the logger information. So in this way, the chain of responsibility design pattern works. Now let's handle in case we are not, so we are sending some log label which we are not supporting. So I have added this one warning label here, and I have not added any concrete handler for this. So let's see what happens in this case. So the request first goes from info to debug, then from debug to the error handler. But since this is our final level of this is basically our final handler, and it is not able to process this request. So finally, what do we have? We got the next handler as null. So the request comes over here, and the request cannot be handled by any handler. So this is how we can implement the chain of responsibility design pattern.